The crowd fell silent as a little girl, no older than 10, walked into the auction hall, alone. Tears streaked her face as she clutched a worn badge in her tiny hand. Her eyes locked on a German shepherd in a cage. No one knew the heartbreaking reason she was there. A little girl stepped inside, her red sneakers scuffing the dusty floor with each hesitant step. The crowd of adults barely noticed at first, but those who did stared with surprise. She couldn't have been more than 10. Her name was Emily. In her hand, she clutched something far too heavy for her small fingers to hold, a police badge, dull from years of use. It had belonged to her father, a decorated officer who had died just months earlier in the line of duty. That badge was all she had left. The hall smelled of hay, sweat, and fear. Rows of cages lined the walls, filled with restless German shepherds waiting to be sold. Men shouted numbers, their voices harsh, money exchanging hands like it was a game. Emily didn't flinch at the noise. Her eyes, wet with tears, searched through the cages with quiet determination. Every step forward carried the weight of loss, courage, and a promise she was desperate to keep. The auction hall buzzed with noise, a sharp contrast to Emily's quiet resolve. Men in heavy jackets leaned against railings, waving numbered paddles as the auctioneer barked out bids in a rapid-fire rhythm. His voice echoed off the wooden beams above, blending with the restless whines of caged dogs. Emily's small figure looked fragile among the towering crowd. Some men laughed loudly, their boots stomping against the floor when a high bid was won. Others whispered, pointing at dogs like they were nothing more than tools, machines to guard their land or fight their battles. Not one seemed to notice the desperation in the animals' eyes. The air was thick with hay dust, mixed with the metallic scent of cages and the muffled growls of dogs pressed against bars. Emily pulled her denim jacket tighter around her shoulders, her braids swinging as she walked. She ignored the laughter, the money, the shouting. Her gaze wasn't on the buyers or the auctioneer. Her heart pounded for one reason only: finding the dog she had come here to save. Emily's steps slowed as her eyes swept across the endless row of cages. Dozens of German shepherds pressed against the bars, their eyes hollow, their bodies tense. But then she saw him, taller, prouder, his fur streaked with the faint scars of service. His tag was gone, but she didn't need one to know. Rex, her father's partner. The K9 who had once stormed into danger beside him, who had guarded their home like a shadow. Now he stood behind rusted bars, his ears drooping, his gaze lifeless, until he saw her. Rex's head snapped up, and a sharp whine broke from his throat. His tail thumped once, then again, as he pressed his muzzle desperately through the bars. Emily dropped to her knees, tears spilling as she wrapped her small arms around him. "Rex," she whispered, her voice breaking. The dog licked at her hands frantically, as if trying to erase every tear. Around them, men shifted uncomfortably, the auctioneer pausing. In that moment, the hall disappeared. It was just a girl and her father's dog, two souls clinging to each other in a world that had taken everything. The auctioneer cleared his throat, slamming his gavel against the podium. Next up, lot number 72. Fully trained German Shepherd. Strong, obedient, police grade. His voice rang out, practiced and cold. All eyes turned toward Rex's cage. Emily tightened her grip on the bars. She could feel Rex trembling against her hand, his whines rising above the auctioneer's booming call. The first bid came quickly, $100. Another man shouted over him with $200. The numbers climbed, the crowd growing louder. And then, a small hand lifted into the air. The room stilled. Gasps rippled across the hall as Emily stood, tears streaking her cheeks, but her chin lifted in defiance. "I'll bid," she said, her voice barely audible, yet powerful enough to silence grown men. Laughter erupted from the back. "A kid? She thinks she can buy a dog." Someone jeered. Another scoffed. "She doesn't even have money." Emily didn't waver. Her eyes locked on Rex, her voice trembling but steady. "He's not just a dog. He's my family." The hall went silent again. The auctioneer hesitated, his gavel hovering as murmurs swept through the crowd. A little girl bidding on a police K9. It was absurd to them. One man leaned against a post, smirking. "Sweetheart, this isn't a pet shop. Do you even have $1 to your name?" Laughter rippled, sharp and cruel. Emily's small hands shook, but she didn't back down. She reached into her pocket and pulled out her father's worn badge, holding it high for everyone to see. "I don't have money," she admitted, her voice breaking, "but I have this. He was my dad's partner. He died saving lives. And Rex is all I have left of him." Silence swept the hall. The badge gleamed faintly under the dim lights, its scratches speaking louder than her words. Rex barked once, pawing at the cage as if to confirm her plea. The men who mocked her shifted uneasily, eyes darting away. The weight of her truth pressed heavy on every chest. No one was laughing now. For the first time, the auction hall wasn't filled with greed, but with something far more unsettling: respect. From the back of the hall, a chair scraped against the wooden floor. An older man rose, his weathered face marked by years of service. His uniform was gone, but the way he carried himself told the story. Once a cop, always a cop. He stepped forward, his eyes fixed on Emily. "I knew your father," he said, his voice steady, cutting through the heavy silence. "He was one of the bravest men I ever served with. And that dog, he wasn't just his partner. He was family." Gasps rippled through the crowd as the man lifted a paddle. "She may not have money," he continued, "but I do. And today, I'm bidding for her." The auctioneer blinked, caught off guard, but then slammed his gavel back into action. New numbers flew across the hall, higher and sharper. The crowd, once mocking, now divided, some still eager for profit, others moved by the courage of a child and the loyalty of a dog. Emily gripped the bars tighter, her heart racing. For the first time that night, hope flickered in her tear-stained eyes. The auctioneer's voice boomed, numbers climbing higher and higher as the bidding war intensified. The retired officer raised his paddle again and again, refusing to back down. Sweat glistened on his brow, but his gaze never wavered from Rex's cage, or from Emily, who clutched her father's badge like a lifeline. "Going once." The auctioneer shouted. A rival bidder called out a final price, his voice strained with determination. The old officer didn't hesitate. He lifted his paddle one last time. The hall held its breath, going twice. The silence grew heavy, every eye fixed on the little girl and the loyal dog behind bars. "Sold." The gavel slammed down, echoing like thunder. The cage door creaked open, and Rex burst forward, leaping into Emily's arms with a force that knocked her to the floor. She laughed through tears as he licked her face, his tail wagging wildly for the first time in months. The hall, once filled with jeers, erupted into quiet applause. No one could deny it. This was a victory carved out of love and loyalty. Emily stepped out of the auction hall, Rex trotting proudly at her side, his head held high as if he knew he had finally found home again. The cold evening air brushed against her cheeks, carrying with it a sense of freedom she hadn't felt since her father's funeral. She tightened her grip on Rex's leash. Though he hardly needed it, he never strayed from her side. The badge rested in her pocket, close to her heart, and for the first time, its weight felt lighter. She wasn't alone anymore. Behind her, the crowd dispersed, their chatter fading into whispers about what they had witnessed. It wasn't just a dog being reunited with his family. It was a story of loyalty that even death couldn't sever. Emily knelt, wrapping her arms around Rex's neck. "We'll take care of each other," she whispered. Rex nuzzled her gently, as if to promise the same. Together, they walked into the night, partners bound not just by duty, but by love that refused to die.